Second half, I thought we played with a slightly better shape, really good energy, and I think the goals make a difference, because I think when you score in the way that we did, there was a brilliant feeling in the stadium, and it enabled us to really express ourselves for the latter part of the game.
The scoreline looks big and it hurts, and it's not nice for any of us to experience that. But that's what the league can do. And I think it's a reset moment for us all, and for Unai coming in. So it's a chance for him to come in and put his mark on this team, his mark on the group of players.
For me, you know, I've been asked numerous times about the World Cup, and yes, I'd love to go, but it was time for me to do talking on the football field at the end of the day. If that's good enough, then so be it. You know, all I can do is try and perform for Newcastle and then see where it gets me.
You'll keep performing like that and it'll get you a long way. A very comfortable win for Newcastle. Alan, bless him, he's had a little smile on his face all evening. Callum Wilson, he was there in the interview there. 6 games in his last 9 games.
Yeah.
Man in form.
Absolutely. It was one of his most important performances today in front of the England manager. He had to get out and perform. He's had his injury problems. There are centre-forward places up for grabs for the World Cup, and I thought his performance today was superb, and has probably cemented, if he's fit, his position in that England squad. He plays his part in the goal. They win the goal back. Lovely way to pass into the magnificent Almiron again, and there's no doubt that's handball. But it's a really clever penalty. We said that we think he might go straight down the middle. A really well-worked set piece from Newcastle. Good balls also from Trippier, and he's there to finish it off. I mean, he gave Tyrone Mings a torrid time all afternoon. He didn't know where to go. Tight, sit off him like he did there, give him time to take a touch and turn. And again, Almiron, 6 goals this month, same as Erling Haaland.
Yeah, incredible.
What a time he's having. He gets above Mings again there, and it's a magnificent header. And you can see the reaction of the crowd and his teammates and the England manager. What a performance from some of the Newcastle players.
I mean, obviously we all know Harry Kane will go, and he'll be England's main focal point as the number 9. But elsewhere, it's debatable who goes. These are the people we think might be in contention. It's fair to point out, and there's reason that asterisks are there alongside Ivan Toney and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, is because we're not giving away whether they scored today or not, because that's what we do on this show. We don't want to spoil it for you. But what do you think? Do you think he might take 2 other strikers?
If Callum Wilson is fit, there's no doubt in my mind he should go. He's had injury problems. There's no denying that. But if he's fit, then for me he has to go, because he provides something different. I think Rashford also, and Tammy Abraham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Room for a few. And Emi Martinez, he was concussed, it seems, in the game. The club have said he's fine, but you were not happy with the protocol.
No, I'm not happy with it at all, Gary. There's been so much discussion and talk about this, and IFAB need to change this rule and change it immediately, because this is not acceptable what happens here. We talk about the concussion. It's a really tough blow for Martinez there. Accidental, Mings, his own player, into the side of his head, and he's down there for 4 or 5 minutes getting treatment off
what
the doctor
should happen?
And the physio. What should happen, Gary, is there should be temporary substitutions. He should be allowed to go off and be assessed for 10 minutes, and a sub should be able to come on. And this is what happens 10 minutes later. So if he goes off and he's assessed, there's no way he's allowed back onto the field of play like he is in this instance. It shouldn't happen. They're failing players by not allowing the temporary substitutions to come on. He shouldn't be allowed to carry on in that instance anyway, because
for his own safety.
There is the wording, if in doubt, sit them out. It has to be in a doubt there when the doctor and the physio are assessing him. But they should be able to take him off for 10 minutes, assess him, look at him, and quite clearly he wasn't in a fit state to carry on.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the relegation battle is going to be one of the most difficult things to predict, because suddenly teams just turn their fortunes around. But what's also going to be really interesting is who finishes in the top 4, because Newcastle are now up to 4th place in the table. And it was a comprehensive win, a comprehensive and definitive performance from them.
Yeah, I thought they played really well, every single one of them. I thought Eddie Howe got his tactics spot on. Callum Wilson, we've said it before, if he can stay fit, I mean, he is the difference maker. Put performances together, they patterns of play, defended really well. Rode their luck a little bit in the first half. Son maybe should have done better with 1 or 2 of his chances, but I think a lot of people are now looking at this Newcastle side and thinking it was almost like, where can they finish? Maybe top 8, top 6 would be good. There's no no reason why they can't go one step further. I think Eddie Howe's been really shrewd in the transfer market, bought good players with the right mentality as well. He's not just gone for superstar names. So I think all of a sudden, this performance against Spurs, who hadn't been beaten away from home, I think, since April, I think that was the real standout performance, and people went, OK, Newcastle are the real deal.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about what it means for Tottenham a bit later on. But from a Newcastle point of view, they do have these performances in them. Is it about getting them consistently?
Absolutely, that's key. You know, if you want to win anything, you need to be consistent. I think it's really disrespectful. Some comments have been made over the last few weeks about Eddie Howe and about spending. I think he actually improves some of the players that they've already had. Joe Linton, for instance, is the biggest example. You know, someone who's a fouled number 9 with previous managers, all of a sudden playing as number 8 central midfield and running the game. You know, Ramirez is obviously one of his signings, but I think he's been astute in the market. He's not wasted any money. And he's improved the players they already had. So I think it's a little bit disrespectful to suggest that it's just about the money, because they've spent nothing. I mean, just hold your breath and wait what's going to come.
Yeah, I mean they did
Wright.
in the last transfer window spend more than any other side in Europe, any of the big teams in Europe.
Yeah, but they needed to, because they just come, you know, they needed to, because they're struggling in relegation. I think for Jurgen Klopp to come out and start criticising them, I think it's rich.
But is there not a difference between acknowledging that they spent a lot of money and criticising them for spending a lot of money? There's a difference, isn't there?
That's what he meant, really, wasn't he? He said, well, we're not spending the money and other teams are, so I just suggest he gets on with his own team, because he's got a lot of problems there at Liverpool.
And we will come to that very shortly. Look, for Newcastle, though, all is rosy in the garden, and one of the players who's got a new lease of life is Miguel Almiron, who, it seemed, was kind of a bit of a lost soul at Newcastle. Rejuvenated now.
Yeah, I wonder if you had a look at Jack Grealish's tweet about him.
Yes.
Tweet, he said it, didn't he?
He's looking at his stats.
Well, he now has better stats than Grealish, which is quite interesting. And he is an example of the players that have been improved by Eddie Howe. He has a real confidence when he gets into the final third. He does take his chances exceptionally well. And he leads with his performances. He inspires other players around him with his performances. I look at Newcastle, the one thing that fascinates me about them in general, personally, if I would own it, when Amanda Staveley took over, she was very triumphant, and that's where all of the optimism around the club came from, because Amanda Staveley said, we will go out and compete for the biggest players, the best players. And I think it is true to say that there are lots of clubs that have had a lot of money but have not been able to build a defensive structure. I think what they've done at Newcastle has been really, really clever with their recruitment. They've brought in good players, not celebrated players, but good players. And they've really built a firm foundation, unlike Everton when they had the money, unlike Fulham.
Manchester
exactly.
United, potentially.
Exactly. When the new money's coming, they've all celebrated on offensive players and not really built the foundations of the house, whereas Newcastle have done the opposite. But it is also true to say that Trippier doesn't come if they haven't got the money, and Isak doesn't come if they haven't got the money. So I think it's almost half and half, you know. But I definitely do think that Joe Linton is a really good example of a player that Eddie Howe has improved considerably, because lots of people felt he had to be sold, and Benitez didn't stay because he wanted a striker, and they offered him Joe Linton, and he's like, this is a £40 million player who doesn't produce £40 million performances.
Which he didn't as a striker.
Which he didn't, absolutely, 100%. And this is the reason why I think Newcastle are in great shape. And yeah, Eddie Howe has done superbly well to mould together the sum of the parts.
It is a moulding of the sum of the parts, and as much as, you know, you can look at Almiron, you can look at maybe Callum Wilson's goals and the importance of keeping him fit. There is, as the guy's been saying, a collective there, and a sense of knowing what's going to happen. There's a pattern to their play.
Yeah, I mean, as Daz was saying there, it's about the foundations, and as you said, Callum Wilson, if he can stay fit, he's 15 to 20 goals every single season, I think. He's got the lot. Defensively solid. Even someone like Dan Burn, again, who they brought in, good player for Brighton. A lot of people looked at it and thought, OK, is he what they need at the time? He's playing left-back now. He's fitting in perfectly. I think as a team, as you said there, they're so hard to play against. They work incredibly hard. They're playing for the manager. And I think, more importantly, they all know their roles. Even someone like Bruno Guimaraes, who's the superstar signing of the team, he's doing the ugly side of the work. And you watch him against Spurs, he's flying around, he's putting his tackles in. But when he's getting the ball, he's calm, he's composed, he's running the game for Newcastle. And I think a lot of credit goes down to Eddie Howe, because I think he's managed him really well. When you hear Eddie Howe speak, I think he speaks really well. He talks about his players. He's never too high if they win a game. He's never too low. He's always level-headed. And I think he knows exactly where this Newcastle team can go. And even when
he should own it. Listen, the money will never go away. So the best thing to do in that situation is just own it and say, yes, we do have a lot of money. We do have an increased profile. There will be a spotlight on us. There is no point pretending and saying it's not about the vast sums of money we're buying for player, because the profile of the club has gone.
I think he said that
roof.
the weekend there as well, when someone asked him about the money. He said, unfortunately, we've got the money. The whole world knows we've got the money. But
not unfortunately.
I don't think he's quite happy with people trying to kind of detract away from the performance against Tottenham. It's almost like, well, you should play that way because you've got the money. And he's working his hardest to kind of say, well, that's not the case. Like, we've got the money, but look at what we're doing with it. We're playing well, and we deserve all the applause we get.
Everybody knows that the secret, and you both know this. You've played in great teams, and and Harry Redknapp always used to say the secret is great players, and you don't attract great players to your club unless you've got money, or you are incredibly good at recruitment, finding their gems, polishing them up, getting them to a position where they can perform on a big stage. And even then, the food chain dictates that someone else takes that player away from you. Newcastle are not in that position at the moment because they have that finance.
But them players who look like, some of them, Almiron looks like a superstar, and the previous managers look like someone you'd want out of your club as quickly as possible if you could get your money back. That's why I think you have to give Eddie all the credit. I think the way they're playing now, the philosophy of how he's put them together, the energy and desire and the commitment of the group, not just individual players. It used to be Sam Maximan. Now he ain't played for ages. No one's talking about him anymore. He will come back, and if he wants to be part of a team group, then he's going to be valuable to him. But it's not just about the individual. You can't win anything with just one individual. You need a group to be buying.
Did you see that moment at the end of the game yesterday where they all got together and they were hugging each other, and that kind of struck me quite a lot, because they are, Guimaraes is a superstar player. Lots of people think he could do even bigger than Newcastle. But at the end of the game, he was right in there. His baby was born last week. He wanted to be back there. That's a really good team spirit.
Do you know what, even the recruitment again, Nick Pope, would even mention him. I mean, the save he made yesterday from Harry Kane, he's made important saves at important times. So again, that comes down to Eddie Howe, because a few teams are in for him, but he felt like he was the right goalkeeper to take this club forward. And I think, again, he could be one of their major signings this season as well.
And one side note on Bruno is that he could have been forgiven for being a bit distracted at the weekend, because his wife, I think it is his wife rather than his partner, gave birth to a baby. Gorgeous. And he put on Instagram, "This is for you guys." And I couldn't make head nor tail of this, because I thought he meant his wife and child. He didn't. He meant the Newcastle fans. And then he went 2 days without sleep, could be at home, but I always wanted to be here with you, by which he meant the Newcastle supporters. Thanks for the support, and a kiss from Mateo, who's the baby, to you. He is a Brazilian Geordie, and then there's a very, very sweet picture of the new baby. But look, you can the link between Bruno and the fans is clearly a really strong one. I mean, his wife may be having words with him after the phrasing of that. Would you not rather have been with us? But look, it's important to him. And Natalie Guedra, the Brazilian journalist who speaks to a lot of the Brazilian players who are here and has quite good links with them, said he can't believe how much the crowd have taken to him. And as he improves in his performances, they feed into his confidence, which grows, and then his performances grow. Yeah, it's a slow burner as well for Bruno. He didn't play for the first 2 months because it wasn't the right time to put him in. Eddie had him on the bench. He was kept drifting him into the game. And he's letting him have a look at the situation. John J. Shelby was playing in front of him. Another player who's picked up knocks as well. So that he had to get used to the English football. We know a lot of them do. He's never threw him in at the deep end to foul. He's put him in when it was right to put him in. They love a hero up there, and he certainly delivers. I mean, he's got the ability, he's got the passion. Benty talked about his work rate. He's getting back in, he's running back. Yesterday, that game was a team knew what they were doing against a group of individuals who are playing for two superstars, which is Son and Kane, and hoping that they do something rather than, as a team, with a playing philosophy, trying to open up the opposition. That was Newcastle, and Tottenham, unfortunately, at the moment, are just reliant on Son and Kane.
You played and managed Tottenham. and you're a midfielder. You know all about the demands of what Grammarish has to do. Which team is benefiting most from their midfielders at the moment?
What, in Newcastle?
Out of Tottenham and Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle.
And which team do you think will finish
Newcastle,
higher?
because they have a battle. They have a lovely balance. You know, they've got a nice mixture of their midfield. I believe that the manager asked them to do something what they like doing, they're capable of doing, rather than ask them to do the job what the manager wants them to do. I think that Bentancur, for instance, has got a lot more than what he's being asked to do. He's being very restricted. Højbjerg wasn't playing yesterday. Oliver Skipp comes in there. Bussinger is in there as well. I just think that they need to just let them do what they're good at. And I think Eddie Howe gives them that. So obviously, to answer your question, Newcastle get a lot more out of their midfield players than Tottenham are at the moment. But Tottenham are not doing that bad.
Who finishes higher?
Who finishes higher is about the consistency. At the moment, you would have to say you would want a season ticket at Newcastle. That's not answering your question.
But it's true.
I think
it's
Harry
true
Kane helps you finish higher up the league.
But it's true to say that even in 3rd and 4th place in the table, with 11, 12 games gone, depending on how many games teams have played, obviously, but 11 or 12 games gone,